Hello comrades, how is it going? My name is William Morrison. This is going to be a quick update from Scotland because we have a new leader. Humza Yousaf is the new leader of Scotland. So I just want to take a few minutes out of your day to kind of explain what's been going on. So a couple of months ago, Nicola Sturgeon, our former leader of the SNP and former leader of Scotland, has resigned. And she resigned over two main reasons, and both including transgenderism and the trans debate. Firstly, she illegally pushed through a bill through Scottish Parliament. It ended up being banned by Westminster, but the Gender Recognition Reform Bill was deeply, deeply controversial. 80% of the Scottish people didn't want it passed, but it was passed anyway through Parliament and fortunately blocked by Westminster. The second point was a point involving a so-called trans person who had been convicted of rape and then came up at the court date with a wig and said that she was now a woman and that he wanted to go to a prison for women. That spurred a lot of debate over what prison that sick individual should have went to. And he was actually sent to a female prison for a couple of days, and then they realised that that was a huge mistake, so they luckily corrected that. But that was too done. The damage had been done. The reputation of the SNP destroyed. Nicola Sturgeon's reputation dragged through the mud. And so she had to resign. So over the past few weeks, we've had a leadership contest. We've had three main candidates. Ash Regan, I won't go much into her. She was quite boring, quite moderate. She just kind of wanted to maintain the status quo. She was kind of a continuum candidate. But she was always going to be an underdog, and she was. She only received 5,500 votes. So what happened is, this wasn't a general election. The people of Scotland could not vote for this leader. It had to be only members of the SNP. So there was about, in a country of 5.5 million people, only 73,000 people were actually eligible to vote for this leader. 50,000 people turned out to vote. So it was about, in that pool of people, there was about a 70% turnout, which is quite high. 50,000 people have decided the new leader for Scotland. So it's not democratic at all. The actual people of Scotland didn't have a say at all. It was only 73,000 members of the SNP that got to actually vote for this new leader. So in the first round of voting between Humza Yousaf, Kate Forbes and Ash Regan, this is how it broke down. Humza Yousaf gained 24,000 votes, which is 48% of the electorate who voted. Kate Forbes got 20,000 votes, which is 40% of, roughly 40% of the turnout for the electorate. And Ash Regan got 5,500, like I just said, which was only 11. So what happens there is we turn into a single transferable vote system. So the way of voting that happened here was a list. So you had to list your preferences. So you had to number all three of the candidates. One being the one that you want the most, two being the one, and then three being your least favourite. So what happened is, because none of the candidates in the first round of voting got a majority, they removed Ash Regan's votes off of the they took Ash Regan out of the candidacy, out of the race, and what they did is they recounted all of the second references, and based on that we see that Humza Yousaf got 26,000 votes, which was about 53% of the turnout, and Kate Forbes got 23.7 thousand. So Humza Yousaf won a very, very small majority, but it was still a majority, and he won. So by default, he is the first minister. So Humza Yousaf is the first minister. So let me tell you about a little background on both of these people, Kate Forbes and Humza Yousaf. So first of all, Humza Yousaf, Kate Forbes, let's start with her actually. Kate Forbes is obviously a member of the SNP. One thing that makes her different and unique from the other Scottish people, the candidates and the SNP as a party in general, is her religion. She's very, very staunchly Christian, and she follows the Christian faith very seriously, and it's the teachings of Christianity that guide her politically, socially, and economically, and philosophically, of course. So that's something that she's quite different on. So she was actually staunchly opposed to the Gender Recognition Reform Act. She protested quite loudly in Parliament against it. She said that it should never have been passed. She criticised Nicola Sturgeon on the undemocratic way that she pushed it through Parliament. And from what I know, she was the only candidate that was actually willing to say that a woman is an adult human female. She was the only one willing to say that. Kate Forbes was the only one who was willing to say what a woman is. And this is not just me going off a tangent here. This is important. This is a central point of Scotland. Scotland is the country that has gone further than any other country in the world in regards to gender identity and making it actual legally binding stuff that we actually have to mandate and follow rules around. We are the country that's gone the furthest compared to any other country. So this isn't just a matter of being alarmist or being controversial or being bigoted or being hateful. A lot of people will still say that, but that's not what I'm doing. This is actually important to Scotland. And Americans who might criticise me for going off this tangent, yeah, this is not a tangent. This debate is fire over here. It's extremely controversial and it needs to be talked about. Scottish people need to have a space where we can talk about it freely, because if we don't, then stuff will get pushed through Parliament, there will be violence on the streets very soon, and it will not be uniting the working class, it'll be dividing the working class, and that is something that nobody wants to do. So it needs to be talked about, and this is a really, really important issue in Scotland, and I really wish more international comrades understood that. This isn't going off a tangent. This isn't Turf Island, some British communists talking about gender again. And this is a serious, serious issue for Britain that we're going to have to get over. We're going to have to come together and have a chat, and we're going to have to make some pretty serious decisions. Because if we don't, then it's going to be a race to the bottom, and I don't like to think how that will end in the very near future. So Kate Forbes was an absolute staunch opponent of passing the Gender Recognition Reform Act. She said that it was an absolute threat to women's rights, and it was the start of a process of deteriorating women's rights and crushing women's safe spaces. That's what she said herself. I'm paraphrasing what she said in an interview on STV. Scottish, the Scottish television news, the STV. STV is a Scottish media outlet. So moving on to Humza Yousaf then. Humza Yousaf is, he was the first elected member of Scottish Parliament to be from a Southern Asian background. And he's very proud of his heritage. I think he's a Hindu. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure he's a Hindu. Anyway, that doesn't really matter. But yeah, he's he's in a minority. He's a South Asian. I think it's India. He's originally from. He's a minority in Scotland. But here's the thing that really annoys me about him. He is identity politics mad. He doesn't care about facts and figures. He just pushes everything off emotion. He reacts emotionally, and he gets his mind changed, and he learns stuff through emotion. He's guided by emotion, and that isn't really a way to run a country. And I think he's going to be a very, very reckless First Minister. I think Humza Yousaf is going to be a very, very reckless leader. He's very, very lousy. He was, before becoming First Minister, he was the Health Secretary, and he has pretty much decimated the healthcare system in Scotland. Compared to our sisters in England, Northern Ireland and Wales, Scottish hospitals are doing the worst. Waiting times are a hell of a lot longer compared to England and Wales. Mental health waiting times are even longer. There are tens of thousands of people waiting treatment, like surgeries and chemotherapy, for example, and they need to wait because there's not enough space for them. There's complete mismanagement, complete underfunding, understaffing, overworking. It's an absolute diabolical situation. And the SNP is struggling everywhere. I'm not saying that it's good in England. It's awful in England too. The SNP is crumbling, and we are not doing good at all as a nation. And our healthcare system is deteriorating. But in Scotland, it is significantly, comparatively worse compared to England and Wales and Northern Ireland. And that is because of Humza Yousaf's fault as a lousy, lousy leader and a lousy, lousy politician and a lazy politician. So that's my first main criticism. But yeah, going back to the identity politics, this is a minority person. He's in a minority situation. He's in a minority group. And here's an example. In Parliament a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about diversity. And he said that it's absolutely disgusting that there isn't enough South Asians in high political power situations. And he listed a lot of high positioned jobs in Scotland, energy companies, leaders of firms and stuff like that, politicians, the leaders of certain committees and stuff. And he was moaning that they were all white. He was moaning that they were all white, and he said there's too many white people. We're living in a racist country. Scotland's racist because there's all these white people who are all in the high paying important jobs, and that minorities are minorities and we're oppressed and exploited. That is a whole load of bollocks, by the way. Well, it's not. Of course they are oppressed and exploited. We all are under capitalism. But here's the thing. Scotland is an 88% white country. Scotland is an 88% white country. Scotland is a white country. You can't change that. So you can't just give people of colour jobs because it fills in some diversity quota. That's not how society should work. People should get the job that they're good at and contempt at and have worked for and have gained that skill. People should do what they are good at. They shouldn't just get a job based on this identity politics gone mad. And that's what this guy wants. This Humza Yousaf. He thinks because he's a person of colour and he happened to win the First Minister that everyone can, and all of the people of colour should start getting promoted. No, I'm sorry. We're living in an 88% white country. Of course there's going to be a racial disparity between jobs. That I shouldn't have to say that. That's pretty common sense. It's unbelievable that I need to say that, actually. But yeah, this is a fully grown man, but he acts like a child. He's emotional. He often can't string a coherent sentence together. And yeah, it's going to be extremely reckless and extremely lousy. And I'm not looking forward to him being leader. Of course, I do think it is a step up from Nicola Sturgeon. It is a little bit of a step up. He's a little bit more competent than her. A little bit more honest too. I just get that vibe from him. He's quite straight to the point and quite assertive. Nicola Sturgeon wasn't. But yeah, I'm quite disappointed. I would have liked Kate Forbes to win, just because of her social conservatism and her loyalty to her Christian faith. I personally am an atheist, but I have a lot of respect for Christians, and Scotland is a Christian country. We are a Christian majority country, and I think that it would have made more sense of Kate Forbes won. And the fact that 80% of the Scottish people didn't want the Gender Recognition Reform Bill to be passed. I think she represented the people of Scotland more than Humza Yousaf ever can. So I think she would have been a much better leader. But still, it's the SNP. These are nationalists we're talking about here. This is a nationalist party that want to break away from the UK and divide antagonisms between Scotland and England. They want a hard border separating Scotland and England geographically. And they're a vile, racist, Anglophobic party. They're a bunch of nationalists. And nothing. I don't think anything's really going to change. That's the kind of the main takeaway here. It's huge news. It's huge news in Scotland. Sorry for that. But internationally, it probably won't change anything. Americans might not even be told by their press that we have a new leader or that we were getting one anyway. But yeah, Humza Yousaf won with 53% of a majority of only 50,000. So that is now Rishi Sunak and Humza Yousaf, both leaders of Britain and leaders of Scotland, who neither got a popular vote by the actual people. They were voted by their own party, which is a very, very small minority of the general population. So completely undemocratic. If anybody comes up to you and tries to say that Britain is a democratic country, laugh in their face, because these are two examples of that absolutely not being the case. Rishi Sunak was voted in from a majority of 200,000 people, and Humza Yousaf has just been voted in by about only 25,000 people. of a country of 5.5 million. So it's absolutely ludicrous to suggest that Britain is a democratic society. But anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheerio.